Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you very much for joining today, Wednesday, February 10th, to the Public Engagement and External Communications Committee meeting. We appreciate everyone attending today. This is Ramona Reyes, Vice President of Commonwealth Board of Education, and joining us on the committee and on the board is Board Member Carol Beckerly and Dr. Tina Pierce. So I'd like to call this meeting to order. And the first order of business is just kind of welcoming. Some of you have not met Carol Beckerly, so I'd like to give her an opportunity to introduce herself to the committee.
Okay, I'm happy to introduce myself. I'm wondering if we should take attendance.
I'm glad you did it. I don't have that pulled up right now.
All right. If you'd like, I can go ahead and take attendance.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.
All right. Vice President Reyes,
Here.
Board Member Beckerly,
Here.
Board Member Dr. Pierce,
Present.
T Street.
Excuse.
I didn't hear that. T Street.
Excused.
Okay. Jimmy Beal.
Here.
Thank you. Dr. Shelby Dawkins.
Here, and I'm not a doctor, but thank you.
All right. Oh, you know what? It was Dr. DeJuan Robinson.
Here.
Did I get that right, Dr. Robinson?
Yes, that's right. Thank you.
All right. Tanya Johnson.
She's
Malik.
excused.
Malik Moore.
Excuse.
He's excused.
Dr. Najera.
I didn't hear from her. It's Dr.
I didn't
Naheda.
either.
It's Dr. Naheda.
Dr. Nahira.
You got it.
All right. Laura Krause.
Excused.
Oh, did you hear from her, Tina?
I did. Just now
Okay.
via text.
Tasha Booker.
Excuse.
Michael Barnes.
You're not here from
I would say excuse for him. I have not heard from him directly, but I hear that he is under the weather.
her.
Okay. Dr. Dion Blue. Dr. Terry Breeden. Scott Wortman.
Here.
Scott Varner.
Here.
And Alicia Gillison, and I am present.
Perfect. Thank you. Member Beckerly, would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes, I'd be delighted to. I have just completed, can you guys hear me okay? I'm going geek on you with this headset, but it's just easier. I've just completed my first year as a school board member. It's an honor to serve the district in this capacity. I have taught in the district for 13 years, special education, both at the high school level at Fort Hays for 8 years and then 5 years at Clinton Elementary. Prior to that, I actually practiced law for about 12 years, mostly serving in-house in large corporations. So it's kind of an unorthodox career path. I'm very excited to be part of this committee. I think public engagement, as I've said during more than a few board meetings, so some of you are tired of hearing it, is at the core of a strategy to get our district turned around, because public engagement and building community, I think, is the linchpin for successful academics. So I'm really thrilled to be on this committee and see a lot of potential to meet our goals, which we're still working on, but we're getting there.
Thank you, Board Member Beckerly. Also, there was a little bit of change from last year. We were the Public Engagement Committee. The committee has now been relabeled Public Engagement and External Communications. And as part of that, we are welcoming another new member, and that would be Scott Wortman. So if Scott, you would like to introduce yourself, that would be great.
Yes, thank you. Scott Wertman, I'm the Chief Communications Officer for the district, finishing up my second year here and excited to join this committee and then tell you a little bit about what we're doing in the Department of Communications later on today.
Perfect. Thank you. That was nice and short. Here's where I would carrying on the tradition that Dr. Pierce started last year. Again, just a warm welcome and a thank you to all current members. Just a reminder, because it is a new year, this is the continuation of last year, but it's an extension into a public engagement and external communications. So I want to remind people there is opportunity to add new members to this committee as we build our work, as you hear us, as you listen to the strategy, as we build our strategy, our charter and our activities. If you are interested in joining, please reach out to the district. All three of the board members present have their emails on our website, or you could reach out to Ms. Gillison. Could you state the email address for engagement?
Yes, it is engage@columbus.k12.oh.us. And Scott, if you will drop that in the chat, so if you want to copy that and keep that for your records, that would be great. Or if not, you could just reach out to Alicia Gillison, 3938 at columbus.k12.oh.us.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Next on our agenda is the purpose of our committee. As previously stated, it has expanded to include communication. So we have a little bit of redefining. It's not going to change a lot. So in this section, we have Dr. Pierce and Harold Beckerly talk a little bit. Dr. Pierce will kind of talk a little bit about the new direction and purpose of the Public Engagement and External Communications Committee. And Ms. Beckerly will provide an update on our charter process. So each of our committees, our board committees, is responsible to create a charter defining the work and the scope of the work for the committees. So she will introduce a little bit of the template that has recently been created that we will need to begin expanding into it. And as she speaks about the structure, the next segment will have presentations from both of our chiefs that lead both our public engagement and communication, so that we can provide structure to the charter. So Dr. Pierce, would you like to go first?
Thank you very much, Board Member Reyes. Before I begin, we have not, were there no minutes to approve prior to? Our agenda did not include an approval of past minutes.
You are correct. And I don't know if we shared those with the committee. So we will have to take that item for the next committee meeting.
So can we please note that if there are meeting minutes from past meeting, that we need to bring those before our committee, to approve. So again, thank you, Vice President Reyes. We've done a lot of great work last year establishing how we will align with the portrait of a graduate to, again, leverage the great resources that we have within our community, the establishment of our engagement department, and then also the way that Mr. Wortman has infused a new sense of use of communication and technology within our district through our new rebranding and development as this new committee. And so what we've done in the past couple of months really aligns with the work that we intend to do going forward. A major part of that work was establishing a defined purpose for us that really aligned with assisting our Columbus City schools to continue to advocate, evolve, and grow in their capacity to meet the changing needs of our community. And as we know, not only has COVID-19 extremely changed those needs, but we know coming out of COVID-19 and moving forward, those needs will continue to change, will continue to grow, and will continue to evolve. And our vision as a district that is forward thinking, that is committed to establishing and growing portraits or graduates that embody 6 competencies, although we know that they will go far beyond that. Again, the work of this committee will be key and central in aligning with the work that we are currently solidifying through our portrait of a graduate work. And so as we move to redefine that mission and vision statement, we then move to make sure that we clearly define subcommittees that we're doing, one, the overarching work of the committee. And again, that perfectly aligns with this new rebranding. Those subcommittees are communication, fundraising, and marketing. And so again, I hope our community and watching public are able to see that that aligns perfectly with Mr. Wortman, again, coming in to infuse those new ways of using technology, communication, to get the great things that our community, to get the great things that our school is doing out into the community. And so again, those subcommittees will align perfectly with that work. The next thing that we did was to establish subcommittees that align with our engagement department. And those subcommittees, again, were Children's Day, our Community Ambassadors Program, our Hall of Fame, our needs assessment for preparedness for engagement, our PTA in a box. And what our committee members, in essence, were able to do with those subcommittees that align to outlining activity, they were able to step up, champion, and really volunteer to carry the charge for some of those activities. So again, being able to come together to work collaboratively with Chief Gillison and the Department of Engagement to move forward our strategy to leverage the resources that we have in our community. So again, what we really worked to do this past couple of months was to really think about how we can continue to elevate the great work that this committee is doing, but to do it in efficient and effective ways through the establishment of well-defined subcommittees that align with departments that are existing within the district, as well as the new infusion of great technology and communication that we're seeing through Mr. Wortman.
Excellent. Thank you, Dr. Pierce. So Ms. Becker, would you like to introduce a little bit of the charter process?
Yes. So in one of our early meetings, board meetings this year, President Adair announced not really sort of an addition of certain committees and kind of a renewed focus on the committee work and what we were looking for the committees to do and how they were going to function. And so it ties back to, I'm going to try my first screen share. Oh, the host disabled screen sharing. That's kind of odd.
Go ahead and send it. Misty,
can you pull up PO15? Well, all right. Yes. Okay. Never mind that. Misty, can you pull up the draft charter that I sent? Well, I don't know if Misty has the one that we were working off of.
I just gave you permission.
I think you just go ahead and just talk about the framework, Ms. Beckerly.
Yeah. Okay.
Instead of the suggested, I think we just should.
All right. So I'll talk about the framework for a minute. Sorry to expose you to that that screen that I have there. So we're going back to the origin of the committees, and the committees are set up through a bylaw that says the purpose of the committees is to basically serve as in the advisory capacity to the board. So the committee's role is to conduct research and studies and provide advice to the board so that the committees are set up to do deeper dives and get really knowledgeable and to understand in detail a particular area within the district. So in our case, it would be public engagement and external communication. And so the thought being, and now we have culture and climate as another committee, we have academics as another committee, and all of those committees are sort of tasked with really becoming subject matter experts to some extent in that area of the functioning of the district. And so our role really, to some extent, or to a large extent, is to understand the objectives and the plans of our public engagement office and our communications office, and find ways to facilitate and make recommendations and other ways to improve and support their operation. So we're really in a oversight and a advisory capacity is how we're working, and to bring expertise. So part of what we're also hoping to do and is to build on and lean on the experts within our community who are on the board and their understanding of ways and strategies and programs and vehicles that we can use to improve our public engagement and external communication. And the other aspect to this is that we will be paying very close attention to the policies, the current board policies that affect public engagement and external communication, review them, identify them first, because they could be, bits and pieces of other, larger policies that address more things. So really do a broad review of that, identify what policies impact them, whether they're the correct policies, whether they need to be changed, or whether we need new policies that will address our current challenges and where we want to go. And then the thought would be that since we're public engagement and external communications, one of the ongoing roles of the committee will be to keep an eye on these policies, because AJ, the consultant that's been helping us with our goals and objectives, says, don't have a policy on the books if you're not willing to monitor it. So then the ongoing role of this committee would be to monitor the effectiveness of the policies that we have in place. And I think the other thought, and I believe that President Adair saw this as well, as a possibility of breaking down silos, because it's quite possible, and this, I've talked to you a little bit, or I sent a couple of emails, Dr. Pierce, about this, where there could be a topic that is part engagement or part communication or both, and also involves academics. And so it may very well make sense that the two committees would come together and create an ad hoc committee where they said, we're going to focus on this aspect of school district operation that involves both, and try to provide some advice, or maybe come up with some recommendations of policy changes, or figure out how we can facilitate or sort through, or maybe bring together other experts to really focus on how do we address this problem. So that's the structure within which we're going forward. And the real action item on the table, I think, for this meeting and for the beginning of this effort is to spend some time today understanding in detail the communication plan and the engagement plan, and then talk about how we think we should define basically the scope of the committee. And as I said earlier, the engagement is probably not so hard to define, but what we want to figure out is how to cover the overlap so that we're bringing in external communications in a meaningful way. So it really would be capturing the overlap between those two organizations and their missions. So if anyone has any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. And perhaps the best thing that we do, now that I think about it, Ramona, is we'll circulate the draft.
That's where I was going to hit.
If you don't mind, I would like to take us back to the work that we've done prior months before. So Board Member Beckerly, this committee was already working to establish our charter and had reviewed that charter. I brought it before the committee for their review, and Vice President Reyes was adding additional items to that charter to consider. I bring this up because it's not only important to think about the structure that us as a board are putting in place for our committees, but one of the things that resonated from our membership with this particular board committee was ensuring that there's clear expectations for our committee members. And so a governing charter helps to establish those expectations for the volunteers that are giving to us their time and their expertise. So when we look at the particular charter that's been put together quite well, may I add, by our legal team and the board, that outlines how many board members can be on the committee, how many administrators can be on the committee. It also puts a term limit in there. This committee has had several members that have been on this committee for years. So they've served more than 2 terms. If I'm remembering correctly, this new charter proposes only 2 terms, which means a person would serve 4 years and have to rotate off. So I just want us to be very mindful of, one, this committee was already going down that road and looking at our charter and thinking very intentionally about how we can use the charter not only to advance the work of the district, but to also set clear expectations for the volunteers that are, again, sharing their expertise and time with us.
Well, I think,
Thank you, Dr. Pierce. Ms. Beckerly, I'm going to kind of move us a little bit, only
okay.
part of it's because I want to make sure that we get the template out to the organization. Like Dr. Pierce said, some work has already done, and you're very familiar with that work. You've taken some of that information that Dr. Pierce provided, some of the things that I've added. You've already started putting it into the new template, and then we're going to be getting feedback from Mr. Wortman and Ms. Gillison to ensure that we are aligned with where they're going, and then we're going to share that back. Maybe we'll create a little subgroup of the committee to kind of rough out the edges and then bring that for full discussion of the committee. So if you don't mind, I'm good, because I know that we have 2 presentations, and I want to make sure that we have time for those, and then we still have the kind of talk a little bit about the activity, if you don't mind. Is that good? I appreciate it. Thank you. So I know that I'm a visual person, so I know some of the folks in our committee probably want to see what that looks like before we get too far down the line and we lose you. So I appreciate your patience on that, and we'll be releasing that here with the meeting minutes. So what I'd like to do is go to the next section. We have invited, and they are members of this committee, both of our chiefs for engagement and communication. And I'd like to give them an opportunity to kind of talk about their strategy as we think about our work and our support and how we'll be able to assist. So the first person that will present is Ms. Gillison, and then followed by Mr. Wharton. Floor is yours, Ms. Gillison.
All right, thank you. And I'm going to share my screen. I'll share the screen and I'll talk about the work that we've been doing. But our strategy is simple. Our strategy is to link resources to our students that need them and to the schools that need them. We're link, align, and grow. And when you think about our community partners, faith-based organizations, and other partners, we need to make sure that their goals are aligned to the goals and priorities of the district. Going back to Dr. Pierce, as we're talking about Portrait of a Grad, making sure full alignment, and then growing those resources. And so we'll kind of talk about some things that we're doing, and please feel free to drop a question in the chat or unmic yourself if you would like more clarity. All right, so here are some of the Department of Engagement's efforts and initiatives. Our learning extension centers where our faith-based organizations and our community partners came forward to create a safe place for our young people to access broadband, to be in a supervised atmosphere, and to be able to connect in their classrooms. So right now we have 85 learning extension centers around the city of Columbus, and they can be accessed, and you can find out where they are on our website. We do have an interactive map. There's a New American and Immigrant Outreach. So when we start thinking about multi-layers of engagement, right? So New American and Immigrant Outreach, we have contracted with ETSS, Ethiopian Talawahedo Social Services, and have hired 6 bilingual liaisons. And we currently have, our current enrollment in the district is 46,000 and some change. Of that 46,000 and some change, roughly 7,000 of those numbers are either New Americans, immigrants, or refugees. And many of the parents do not speak English. So we employ bilingual liaisons, not just somebody that could speak Spanish, but someone that knew the culture and was of that culture, because that's how you build a sense of belonging and relationship and trust. We have Operation Knock on Doors, and that's one of our newest that we're really, really excited about. And this is not a department of engagement. This is cross several departments. Our safety and security specialists who are in buildings anyway, right? They're actually working with building teams. And as teams would share, Ms. Beckerly would share, here are students that we have not been able to reach, and there might be something going on at home. And our safety and security specialists go visit the homes. Now they call first, of course, and they make appointments, visit the homes, and they troubleshoot. Maybe it's a hotspot that stopped working. Maybe a parent needs to know where an LEC is. Maybe they need a new Chromebook. So they do the troubleshooting for us so that we can get kids engaged back as soon as possible. And at your door engagement are those families that need intense services. And so we are partnering with the National Center for Urban Solutions, and they work very closely with Franklin County Job and Family Services. So they go out and they actually connect people with referrals to those needed services, whether mental health, whether alcohol addiction, rental assistance, and those type things. And then we have our vulnerable youth and homeless youth. And right now that is a targeted group where it's hard to find them in this space. So it's easy for us to work with the homeless shelters, right? But then we have students that are out there couch surfing. So we have to be able to reach out to them and make sure they have what they need. So you can't talk about supporting a young person if you don't talk about working with the family. And that's where We Care Wednesdays come in. And that's one Wednesday a month. I'll say it again to this group. That's one Wednesday a month when you want to, when we start talking about how we can support the work as a public engagement committee, we call families just to touch base, let them know that we care and see if there's any way that we can support them. Now, last time we partnered with Lutheran Social Services, but after talking with Vice President Reyes, we're going to expand that so that we be able to offer more resources to families. And our next one is February the 24th. Support our seniors. Oh, where'd I go? I went too fast. Support our seniors and senior success centers. We know the graduation is coming up in June. And it's coming like a freight train. Can you believe that we have been in COVID and since March, our kids have not gone back to school. So we have seniors that feel abandoned and we need to do a full court press. So some of our LECs are opening as senior success centers. And we're also going to have senior success centers. We have an LEC in Northland working with our kids, and we're having some conversation around South High School. So we're trying to get them into the school. And we have our online family engagement survey, so that we'll be going out to families, gathering more information, and then our virtual family engagement super sessions. So I kind of gave you in a nutshell. Back to learning extension centers, 85 across.
Ms. Gillison, before you move forward, there's just a question in the chat. Are you utilizing any connections to Star House, Huck House, and Kaleidoscope to help working with your vulnerable and homeless youth?
Absolutely, yes. We've been working with Aaron Upchurch, and we do work with Huck House, and I'm glad you brought that up, with Huck House and Star House. And we have provided each of those with a Chromebook cart, so that as students need access to Chromebooks, that they have the Chromebooks. And then it was brought up when we were meeting with, we have bi-weekly meetings with the homeless shelters. Huck House is a part of that. They don't want to have cords all over the place at night as kids are trying to charge their Chromebooks. So we gave them the Chromebook cart so they can actually charge the Chromebooks and they would be safe and locked up. But thank you for that question.
Thank you.
All right. Yeah, the mayor's office and city council committed nearly $2 million. I think it was 1.7 to be exact, to ensure the 85 learning extension centers had all of the supports needed, PPE needed, technology needed to support young people. And here's a couple of pictures of our learning extension centers. You will see that the students are socially distanced, and they all have their own Chromebook, and they have their masks on. And here's the interactive map. If any of you would like to go to the interactive map to put in information to find a learning extension center near you, that's on our website at www.ccsoh.us, learning extension centers.
And Ms. Gillison, another question from the learning centers. One of the questions I have heard from our parents is, are those centers available during the hybrid teaching? So one of the parents was wondering, if my child goes Monday and Tuesday to school, are they able to go Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday to a learning center and vice versa?
The answer to that question is yes. So the learning extension centers will continue working the same schedule they worked prior to us going back and blended, because we have the A cohort and the B cohort, right? So the A cohort would need Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, where the B cohort would need Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. So there is still a space for our learning extension centers. And as you bring that up, even if a miracle happens and all of our kids go back, then our learning extension centers will transition into after school centers for students.
That's great news.
All right. And I talked about the bilingual liaisons, and we serve Spanish speakers, Somali speakers, and Somali Mai. And I just want to take a moment there. Somali Mai is a verbal language. It is not a written language. And it is a whole different dialect from Somali. And we actually have, and it usually is with the Bantu Somalis. And so we have Arabic, Nepali, and Kinyarwanda. And some of the common challenges that we've seen are the remote learning needs, families needing to know how to use these Chromebooks now that their children have Chromebooks, and need to know when their kids are pulling their legs, right? So our bilingual liaisons actually go out and sit with parents and show parents how to utilize Parent Portal, and how to contact teachers, and how to ensure that your child is checking in for every class every day.
Let me interrupt quickly too, just to say, can we include this presentation when we send out the minutes and the next agenda? that okay?
Yes, it's fine
Okay.
with us.
Okay.
All right. And our Operation Knock on Doors, you will see our safety and security officers going around, meeting with parents and meeting with families. And some of the results have been great. And believe it or not, most people are very, very receptive for them coming out. And as you think about it, our safety and security specialists, they're great at building relationships anyway in the school. But this gives our safety and security specialists an opportunity to meet elementary families, and they work in the same region. So most of them work at the middle school and high school, but now they're getting introduced to the elementary kids who will eventually be going right into middle school and high school, and they will already have built those relationships with families and the students as well. All right. And at your door engagement, that's our partnership with National Center of Urban Solution. And that's for the more intense. And right now we're working in the Walnut Ridge feeder pattern. And most of you, if you are from Columbus, you know that area over there is not resource rich. So that is an area that we intentionally focused on. Like there's City Year is not in that area. And so some of the other resources, so we try to be very intentional with providing those services to those families. And I shared about our, there you are, Huck House and Star House, Van Buren, Harvey Court choices. We've loaned the Chromebook carts to shelters, and also the McKinney-Vento funds, because that now falls under the Department of Engagement. If there's a student in a homeless shelter that wants to get to an LEC, we can utilize McKinney-Vento funds for transportation to and from, whether that's in the form of an Uber or some type of private transportation. We can get them there. We Care Wednesdays, once again, is February 24th. This is an all call. We make calls between 4 and 7 to families. Everyone has a list. We do a training. We give a script, not only a script if you reach a live person, but also a script in the event that you get a voicemail. So that one, we want families to know that we care about them. Two, we want to be able to provide resources, because even if that family doesn't need the resource, they may know somebody that needs the resource. And here are pictures of our board members making phone calls. It was interesting, the power went out and they were still making calls in the dark. As you see Dr. Dixon in the dark making calls.
Just quickly, Alicia, another question in the chat. Is the transportation option shared with the homeless shelters? Are they aware of the service?
Yes, they are aware of the service.
Okay.
Although we have not had many take us up on it. But as I said before, we meet bi-weekly with that same group that you saw on there. And we share that information, and we've had several conversations, so they are aware. And even if we go back to school, so we're back for our pre-K through 5. If we have students that are homeless and they may have moved around and the shelter may not be on the bus line, those same funds can pick the student up and get the student to school, pick the student up from school and get them back home.
Oh my God, that's wonderful. I mean, when I was teaching and I had students that had those challenges, it was really hard to get the transportation in line. So that's just like short circuiting that whole
yes, because we want to get them back in school, and we want to really add some normalcy to their lives.
That's terrific.
Since their lives have been turned upside down. And then our big push is we have senior support teams in every high school. That includes the counselors, the building administrators, the family ambassadors, our partners, and they're working on plans for those seniors in that school. Those that are credit deficient, but how about those seniors who've done everything like they were supposed to do? And now they get ready to graduate. What's tomorrow going to bring in the midst of COVID? So we have I Know I Can there to walk them through college applications and scholarship applications to make sure that there's a plan after high school. And senior success centers, we'll be opening up LECs. Actually, we've been training all week this week. We have 2 more dates of training and orientations for credit recovery, so that when a student drops into the Senior Success Center at the LEC, they can support them. Knowing ultimately we would like to, we have one in Northland, having a discussion on South. Ideally, we would like to have one Senior Success Center in every high school, and we have partners that are willing to run those centers for credit recovery for our students. And Senior Fest 2021. So that's coming up real soon. I don't know, is this a link? I can't hit the link. Can't hit the link. But that's something coming up to re-engage our students, to get them excited about being a senior and to let them know we haven't forgot about you. And it's planned by students, and it will span the entire Columbus City Schools for seniors. It's seniors only. And then our family engagement online survey, and it's a survey of culture and climate. And then every Tuesday and Thursday, we have virtual family engagement sessions. And on Thursdays, it's a super session because we get our superintendent. And what's this Thursday, which is tomorrow? It's everything graduation. So if you know someone who has a senior and they're wondering what's going on, how do I know my senior is on track? What are the perks my senior gets? When is graduation? Please have them tune in for super session Thursday, that's tomorrow, from 6 to 7. And in a nutshell, those were all the things that we were doing. And when I talk about it's a multi-tiered, they're multi-tiered layers. And so we have what's uniform, what every student gets. Then we have that targeted group, the homeless students and those students that we need to send folks out to. And then we're even take care of those families and students that need very, very intensive support. Link, align, and grow. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gilson. We do have another question going back to the transportation for our homeless youth. How do those students know of the transportation options?
We call them Project Connect liaisons. And if those students that are homeless, they're connected with that liaison, all they have to do is reach out. Now, if they're at the shelter, then someone at the shelter can contact the Project Connect liaison. But all of our students that we know of that are in that situation, whether couch surfing or anything else, all they have to do is reach out to their Project Connect liaisons. And that is a very good question, because what we could do is share that information, the Project Connect liaisons, with everyone on this committee in the event that you encounter someone who needs that information. So I'll make a note of that.
If I could piggyback on that, our counselors are very aware about a Project Connect and many of the supports offered through them, including transportation, and they regularly connect with students who are identified as in transition, whether it's couch surfing or, not one permanent place. So they're regularly checking in on those students and providing, and same with seniors. They have a lot of contact with seniors because Project Connect also helps seniors with, any kind of graduation fees, any associated fees and things like that. So counselors are regularly checking in and making connections for kids.
Thank you, Jimmy. Ms. Gilson, is this grant only available for homeless youth, or is this available for as some of us, my other job is I work for a community center, and I have encountered some youth who have lost their home, and they're now in multi-generational homes. So not typically couch surfing. Now they're living with another one or two families. And the impact of that is maybe they do not have any type of transportation. Is that available to those types of students?
As we kind of peel back the layers, if that student is homeless, so whether you are couch surfing or whether you're in a home that is not yours, then that would be considered homeless. Am I correct on that, Jimmy?
That's correct.
Perfect.
So it could be families that are doubled up. It
Mhm.
could be a student who's
In a hotel?
yes, absolutely. I've had students
know.
who stayed in abandoned buildings. I've had students who they don't think of themselves as homeless,
Right.
because they have a home, but it's not a permanent home that is theirs.
Dr. Pierce also has a question.
So one, thank you so much, Chief Gillison, for this great presentation. As I listened to the presentation and read through the PowerPoint slides, the thing that really caught me is that the challenge for this committee as we move forward is to continue to adapt our subcommittee structure to align better with the work of the Department of Engagement. Right now, as I look at that subcommittee structure for activities, and I see PTA in a box, and I see Children's Day, but in this presentation, I hear about the work that we need to do to knock on doors. I hear about the work that we need to do to motivate our students and make sure that they're not just getting across the graduation stage, but that they're gainfully moving into career, military, or college. And so I charge this committee to think very deeply and intentionally about how we can, again, align the subcommittee work better with the work of engagement. I see that clear and direct connection with communication and Mr. Wortman's, but I think there's still yet some work to do in terms of engagement.
Absolutely, Dr. Pierce. My mind was going as I would take up probably another 35 minutes. I'm sure Dr. Pierce and everybody on this line would probably have another 100 questions and suggestions or where we could help. So we will definitely take some time to start doing that as we create our activity blog, which already to your point, Dr. Pierce, it looks like we're already changing it.
So thank you for that and for that consideration. And please understand that everything some things fall under the Department of Engagement, but really it's a collaborative effort across pretty much all the departments, so being able to align that work so that we can stay laser focused on the district priorities and making sure our kids have post-secondary opportunities, whether they want to go to college, into the military, or go to work. But we want to make sure that they are prepared, not academically, but social, emotionally as well.
Mm-hmm. And I think part of the work that this public engagement committee can also do is getting all those resources out, to your point. As I'm sitting here, a member of a community center, some of these, I have not been able to share some of this information to my constituency group. So as people were impacted by COVID and have ended up in multi-generational, multiple family homes, that has been an issue. And I guess maybe shame on me. But there's a lot of moving parts, but that's something that we can definitely work on to ensure that information is out to our partners, right? You have partners and you've delivered those, but making sure that we get back to you and ensuring that all partners are receiving the information and sharing it. And I'll confess, we get a lot of information. I mean, I probably get about 18 flyers a day of information and resources that are available to our community. So sometimes we miss one or two, but for me, most importantly is making sure that our children are being educated and finding those resources to get to school and to continue learning. So I appreciate it.
And two thoughts. about Dr. Pierce's point about aligning the subcommittee structure. Or one thought about that and then another thought. So for instance, it may be that within this overall committee, we create a subcommittee or a working group that's focused on homeless issues. And we gather people from the community who have a knowledge base in that. And we help brainstorm, things like, Shelby was asking questions in real time. It sounds like, I don't know your background, Shelby, but you clearly have a background to some degree, a sense of how homelessness works. So like we have an Uber group focusing on what do you do homeless work, Shelby?
So I worked in social services for many years. I currently work at the James Center for Cancer Health Equities. I work with a lot of LGBTQ youth and young adults, and youth and young adults separately. So it kind of all just lives in my wheelhouse in terms of like, I know who to connect if we have certain issues and what resources are available. But I also know that there's a strong issue with connecting people who don't necessarily come out about their situation. So I guess that was my question, like around the transportation thing. I think that's an amazing resource, but how are we making sure that some young people who maybe aren't telling us that they're homeless or couch surfing, are they aware? Is it like posted somewhere that like, do you need to get to an LEC center? Do you not have transportation? And how do we present that to the young people and guardians and not maybe there are people who are guardians who aren't necessarily parents, right? So that's a different relationship. And so just like, how do we make sure that we're communicating to the youth in a way that is meaningful so that the resources are fully utilized? Otherwise, the resources are
do this,
but we don't do anything.
Right.
So.
And which brings me to my second point. Well, go ahead. Whoever was going to say something.
I was just going to answer her question, kind of. How we get that information out. Is it posted? And the answer is yes, it is. So of course we're virtual now. So those postings look different, it's like posted in a classroom. So, an online classroom, there's flyers that go out to families and updates and things like that. But ordinarily when we're in buildings, yes, that kind of information, are you homeless? And are you living with multiple families? Are you staying, and it kind of defines it that way. And that kind of information is out there. So, and like I said, counselors having regular conversations with students, a lot of that will come to the surface, and then, they connect them with Project Connect, and then they're on somebody's radar. But yes.
So I think outside of that, that's amazing. I figured if you guys were in buildings, that would be the case. But I think it like being potentially that we're looking at also the external communication on this committee now this is the opportunity really to utilize our virtual spaces and what Mr. Wortman's going to share with us. So I think like those are the important things. And there's got to be a way that just because they're not in a building, that there's something that's sent to them that says, hey, we have this for you if you need it. And if you don't need it today and you need it next week, right? So I mean, like those things I think are very clear, and our youth take for granted that too often that they're by themselves. And if they haven't had anybody, they don't ask for help. And so like, that's why. And unfortunately, I don't currently live in Columbus City schools. I do have a child in a suburb school, but I have worked with Columbus City schools and coaching and stuff like that over decade plus ago. So I do know what the kids need and what they lack. And so it's like, those were the things that were going through my mind when you're doing a presentation. You all have amazing things happening. So yay. And I hope support that. That's great.
That's almost a perfect segue when you talked about external communications. My mind is over here going like, we can have it up in the libraries. We can have it up. So, and we'll talk about that. I know Scott is, Chief Wortman is ready to present.
Yeah. One quick thought though, in terms of going back to the committee structure, our role, and if we're really adding value, is to be bringing these ideas in, these communications in, and providing an assist, because, too often everybody is saying to Alicia and Scott, you should do this, you should do that, you should do this, let's do that, let's do this, we should do that, And so if we can help think through some of that and come up with suggestions, and that's part of what we do, and we connect, the did you know this already existed? And then it's a no-brainer for either Scott or Alicia to run with it. Like, so I think that is where the wealth and the real value of this committee will show itself. And so one of the things we have to be mindful is making sure we understand what the Office of Engagement is doing and that we listen. And Scott and Alicia, feel free to say, it would be really helpful if you guys could, get some knowledge about X, or, help us think through this problem, or whatever it is. So I think that there's, to Dr. Pierce's point, that's part of what we need to align to make sure we're meeting the need.
And I know Mrs. Gillison's really good at coming to this committee and saying exactly that. Thank you, Board Member Beckerly. Mr. Wortman, if you'd like to start, go ahead.
Thank you. I've got my screen queued up. Okay, you should be seeing my PowerPoint right now. And if you have any questions or anything comes through the chat, please let me know as I go through this, but happy to answer any questions as we go or afterwards. So thank you for the opportunity to discuss the work of my department today. Oftentimes we're the ones behind the scenes helping with others' presentations. And so it's an honor to be able to present to you today about the work of the communications department. I want to provide a high-level overview of our strategy and vision, while also highlighting some of the recent initiatives that we've put forth. Despite the fact that we've essentially been in crisis communications mode for almost a year, we've been able to grow in some strategic areas to improve the results of our communication efforts. Starting off with our strategic vision, the communications department supports the district's educational objectives through effective and data-driven communication strategies, which build productive relationships with families, students, staff, partners, and the broader community. So I want to highlight two key points in that statement: effective and data-driven. Not all communication channels are effective for every organization, and this is true for school districts. What may work for one district may not be effective for another, and vice versa. So if we determine a strategy is not effective, then we'll change course, stop doing it, and spend our time and energy on more effective endeavors. In the world of communications, there's no end to what you could do, but you must determine how best to use the resources at your disposal. With that said, we make our decisions on how best to communicate based on data, key indicators, and previous results. We want to execute communication strategies that get results rather than the ones that we think are working. And I'll get into a few of those key indicators in some areas later in the presentation. So as we drill down on how to achieve our vision, we focus our work on two primary objectives or streams of work. The first, information delivery. How might we effectively and efficiently inform all stakeholders by diversifying our methods of communication? The second is storytelling. How might we use a consistent and intentional approach to tell the rich story of our district, its schools, our staff, and most importantly, our students? And as you'll see in the presentation, storytelling is an area of high growth for our team, especially on our digital channels. As a department, we have 4 core values to keep at the forefront of our ongoing efforts. First, communication, which seems like a no-brainer for a communications team. But we want to be effective and nimble communicators, not only on behalf of the organization, but also within our team. Second, we know that equity is a priority for our district, and we need to be cognizant of that in our communications efforts. Third, we expect excellence. We will not settle for anything short of our best, focusing on details big and small. And lastly, we want to be helpful. At the core of what we do, we will be ready, willing, and able to support and help others. Before I dive into what we're working on at the district communications level, I must point out that the building level communications are the most effective and important forms of connections with families. Our principals, school staff, and teachers are communicating and connecting with families and students every day. And so at the district level, we want to support that important work and provide resources and assistance where needed. This can include crisis communication support, talking points and consistent messaging, event promotion, or storytelling, to name just a few. At the district level, communications is a large umbrella that covers a variety of functions for the organization. Our work and responsibilities are multifaceted and broad. This includes written and oral communications, audiovisual, graphic design, photography, and customer service. Most importantly, though, we can serve as connectors across departments or work streams. Communicators for any organization are typically included in many cross-departmental projects, initiatives, and discussions, and thus are key connectors and consultants. I won't read the entire list of our responsibilities as shown here, as I'm going to highlight a handful of these areas in the presentation. So the first area I want to highlight is customer relations, which I believe is a model unit for school districts to emulate.
Yeah.
Our supervisor of customer relations and former teacher and principal, Steve Hoffman, leads this team of veteran educators who are adept at handling and mediating questions and concerns from families and community stakeholders. And our customer relations team works in collaboration with the long-standing Fact Line, which is helmed by retired teacher Barb Reed. So Barb is an asset to our families and community through her unwavering support and information. Second area that I'll highlight is media relations, which is an important aspect for a school district and organization of our size. Director of Communications, Jacqueline Bryant, does an outstanding job of working with the media daily and being the first point of contact with local and national reporters who cover the business of our district. As the largest district in the state, CCS obviously gets the bulk of media attention among Central Ohio districts. This requires a regular and concerted effort to handle media inquiries and requests from print, TV, radio, and digital outlets. One of the most powerful and efficient tools we have at our disposal is our mass notifications platform, which is through Blackboard. This system allows for multi-platform messages to go out to families and staff at a moment's notice. Understandably, this is a key component of our messaging system when we announce a cancellation of classes due to weather or any other emergency situation. Messages can be sent in a variety of ways, including phone dialer, email, text message, website and app notifications, and social media. Blackboard also allows you to upload audio files or written text in multiple languages, and these tailored messages will go out to families based on their chosen language preference. It's important to note that principals and school leaders also have access to Blackboard to communicate with their families on a regular basis.
Scott, before you move on, are we doing a good job of ensuring that we get the multi-language information from our students and parents, to your point of multi-language mass notifications?
So I'm gonna touch on that briefly towards the end of the presentation as an area of opportunity, but yes, that is on our radar. Yeah.
Thank you.
Perhaps the area where we've seen the greatest amount of growth in terms of strategy is our digital communications. And we talk about digital communications, it starts with our website, ccsoh.us. Our website is a hub of information, to say the least. Oftentimes, it is a one-stop shop for families or staff that are seeking information. As a result, we count our page views in the millions. Knowing the utility and popularity of the platform, it's imperative that our team organizes and presents information in a way that is easily understood and easily accessed. This is an ongoing effort where we continually seeking ways to optimize the experience for our website visitors. One way that we improved the visitor experience recently was upgrading our school websites. As you see here, this is a side-by-side view of the West High School website. Last year, we moved all of the school websites to this new Blackboard template that gives schools the ability to update their site with announcements and information, but it also allows our team at the district level to push new information across multiple school websites at once. This means that school sites will become stale less often and are completely dependent on school staff to update their pages. So we know what information is presented on our website. We have full control over that. However, we know that not everyone will automatically go to our site. Many times people will type their question in Google or use another search engine. Just as it's important to maintain the information on our website, we know that it's also important to keep tabs on what is on outside sites because search is a very powerful and frequently used tool these days. Enter Yext, a search engine optimization platform that serves as our central hub to control the district's location listings on dozens of digital platforms. The Yext hub, also known as the Knowledge Graph, allows us to own and update our school and administrative location listings across search engines, voice assistants, maps, apps, and chatbots. We partnered with Yext last year and have just scratched the surface of how it can help provide information and answers in the digital space. I've largely talked about information delivery in the digital space. And as you remember, there are two streams of work to what we do in communications. The second stream is storytelling. And at the heart of this objective is our content marketing strategy. As defined by the Content Marketing Institute, content marketing is a strategic marketing approach focused on creating and distributing valuable, relevant, and consistent content to attract and retain a clearly defined audience, and ultimately to drive profitable customer action. What does that mean for a school district? For the most part, we are not driving customer action to generate profits. However, the tenets still apply. The content we create and post, if done strategically, helps build our brand, shines light on the great work happening in our district, and engenders trust with our stakeholders. We have prioritized creating content, written, video, photo, multimedia, that when weaved together over a period of time, tells the rich story of our district, school, staff, and students. We created a news hub on our website, Inside CCS, that houses this content in a central location where we can link visitors back to. This is one of the most important locations to know on our website, as it is continuously updated with new and relevant information. So now that we have all this great content, what do we do with it? It isn't enough to create it and just put it out in the world in hopes that people will see it and engage with it. We must optimize the publication and promotion of our content to reach the maximum audience possible. What are we posting? When are we posting it? Where are we posting it? How are we posting it? To keep all this straight, we create a weekly content calendar that outlines our stories for the week so our team can collaborate and be strategic in their storytelling efforts. In short, these content marketing efforts produce results. When done right, it is an effective strategy to engage and grow your audience. And this is important when considering our social media channels, most notably Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. When considering our success on these platforms, we look at three key indicators. Number one, audience growth. Are we consistently gaining followers and growing our digital presence? The second is reach. How many people are actually seeing our social media posts? Just because you have 10,000 followers, not all 10,000 will see every post you make. The algorithms that social media platforms use value the quality of your posts along with how many organic viewers engage with the post, which means engagement is the third indicator. This is when people react, such as like, or they comment, or they share your post. The higher the engagement, the bigger the reach, plain and simple. And to get quality engagement, you need quality content. The screenshot I have here shows an example of what we look at in our social media dashboard program, Sprout. It shows our audience growth on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram over the past month. Communications manager Ryan Schwepfinger spearheads our digital communications. And we have a number of content creators, including multimedia journalist Tyler Carter, communications specialist Terry Anderson and Nancy Burton, and multimedia technology specialist Ryan Nord and Tyler Scott. Moving away from the digital side of communications, another area I want to highlight is our internal communications. How are we creating effective communications and messaging for the more than 9,000 CCS teachers and staff? This has been a priority focus of ours lately, considering the frequency of changing information and the need to inform staff quickly amidst the pandemic. One of the tactics we have used is creating relevant and strategic email newsletters that go just to district teachers and staff. Cleverly named the Core Report, these go out twice a week and are created by Nancy Burton. The midweek edition is sent on Wednesdays and includes our recent stories, and the weekend edition is sent on Fridays and includes the superintendent's message and important information for staff to know. We are also collaborating with the Department of Technology on a revamped intranet site through Microsoft SharePoint. This is not to be confused with our public-facing internet site. An intranet is geared solely for CCS employees who would log in to access information and resources. In light of our current virtual environment, both in the educational and occupational settings, we recently expanded our capacity for audiovisual support and resources. Multimedia supervisor Paul Brown leads a team that is responsible for live streaming meetings and events, including the one we are on currently, producing videos for a variety of purposes, be it content, informational, or staff professional development, and being part of the future planning for instructional technology support. Lastly, I want to highlight 2 areas of opportunity where I can see the need for our organization to grow. First, our marketing and advertising, or paid media in communications lingo. We do some paid advertising on radio and social media currently, but there exists a need for a strategic, ongoing approach to paid media in order to more adequately amplify our messaging citywide. Second, as we mentioned earlier, we know that our audience is vast and diverse, and we want to be equitable in our communications, especially in the midst of a pandemic. We currently work with the ESL team to translate messages in our top 5 non-English languages: Spanish, Somali, Nepali, Arabic, and French. But there's an opportunity to define a robust district-wide program that can better serve our community. And we are collaborating with the ESL team to determine what that may look like. Thank you for your time today. I hope that I was able to show you some of what we're doing in communications. I cannot give enough credit to my team for the outstanding work they've done over the past year. It's not a stretch to say that we've been in crisis communications mode since last March. But even in light of that, we have continued to grow and strategize ways to improve upon our efforts. And we continue to listen to feedback on how to better communicate with stakeholders. Look forward to working with this community and shaping the future of communications for Columbus City Schools. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Wow, that's a lot.
Good job, Scott.
That's a lot. I think there's, as we were talking for the first part for the public engagement piece, obviously it goes hand in hand with communications. And I think it was a great strategy to put these 2 components together into what we have now. So we've got some work ahead of us to take those presentations, look at what's within our preview, and then has been discussed with Dr. Peterson, Board Member Beckerly, how we then begin assigning the work, getting people to work in these subcommittees and start helping as much as we can. Anybody have any questions for Mr. Wardman or for Mrs. Gillison at this time before we move to the next?
So I have a question I'm not sure if it's a question, but for Mr. Wortman. I think one of the things that may be challenging for us when we get our entire committee together at the table will be that as we transition into this new structure, this committee and the individuals that have served for a number of years are workers. They are not a committee that comes in to listen to presentations and to kind of give this input. They want something tangible to put their hands on. They want to make an impact. They want to engage the community in meaningful ways. And so when we think about what that looks like in terms of communication, so Mr. Wortman, I'm thinking specifically when you said we use data to inform how we reach out to families. In some instances, we will have to have conversations with our committee members to help them understand that, you know, there's a reason why we continue to use the phone dialers, but at the same time, provide the committee members with an opportunity to weigh in and provide information so those phone dialers are more useful for families when they go out, right? So, you know, I'm excited to how we'll all come together to collaborate. But again, I think there's rich opportunities to ensure that our committee members are still having a meaningful role to play in communications, right? Because a lot of that work can be done before you actually come to the table. It could just be you sharing, here's how we're reaching out to the communities, here's what we're doing, and getting feedback. So I think if you could continue to think of ways that individuals can really be boots on the ground and do some work, that would be much appreciated by our committee members, I know.
Absolutely.
Ms. Becker?
I just had a couple of quick things. One is I'm always blown away by how much we have accomplished in the year, 2 years, year and a half that we've had Scott's team up and running and Alicia's team up and running. And I almost start hyperventilating when I see all the bullets of all the areas that you're covering, because it's huge. So I'm very excited to be part of this process and figuring out how we can facilitate your work. And, you know, not for anything, but, you know, we're allowed to advise the board. We could say they need more people in their departments. That could be our advice. So, you know, I mean, I'm being facetious, but I'm not at the same time, you know? So, I mean, we need to listen to you and figure out how we can facilitate your work and add value.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just want to add to, and Scott teased it out so perfectly, that we have been operating in crisis mode, but this crisis will come to an end. Mm-hmm. And we will have to have aligned strategies and practices that will span post-COVID. Like in the midst of it, we're learning that we can do things that we never even would have thought of before. Mm-hmm. Now we have to learn how to utilize those strategies in a different way. Maintaining our authenticity, maintaining the ability to be proximal with our communities, with our parents, and with our students. And when we were in the building all the time in CEC, Scott's department was just across the hallway. And what I didn't share is that the two departments work great together when we can get time together. But it's like when you're working in crisis mode, you know, Scott Wortman and his team are going to handle that side. And then they rest assured that we're going to handle the administrative side, because without Scott Varner and the folks on my team, it would have been impossible. But I feel like with the support of this public engagement committee and really teasing out what we're doing, we're going to make a major impact, not just for today, but for tomorrow and in the future.
Perfect. That rolls us into the next segment. And I know we have 5 minutes, so we may have to cut this a little short. So I'll just say a little blurb and then allow Ms. Beckerly some time and Dr. Pierce. So you've heard a little bit about the work that's going on. And obviously this committee will also have opportunities to discuss what the work that was discussed last year and what some of the things that were agreed upon, and see if there's any adjustments that need to be made. Obviously, some of the activity work that we decided on because of code may not happen this year. That's a committee decision. That's also an administrative decision, because some of those activities do weigh into some of our administrators. So there is, Ms. Beckerly, I think last week, a couple days ago, began a template that we hope will be adopted into other committees, board committees, on how to select a committee, who's responsible, what's the work of the committee, and what are the activities. She has, it was just created, I gave her some input, but obviously it needs to be refined, and then we need to add our work. And we had a lot of great ideas today. We need to make sure that we get Ms. Gillison's, Mr. Wortman's ideas, Dr. Pierce, and then bring it to the committee and start making some changes. So what we're going to do in the interest of time is we're going to have some notes from this meeting. We're going to include the templates, not the work. We're going to include templates of the charter and templates of the activity, committee activity. And then we'll work towards filling that in. What does that mean for us as a committee? As was earlier discussed, we do have some conflict every year. You know, people make a new calendar and committee work and our regular work gets booked, and there is a little bit of a conflict with the dates that were pre-selected from last year. So we will, I will be working with Misty, who will provide me a good template of what the dates are that other committees are meeting and maybe some of the board and district work, so we do not conflict with them. I will get back with my my colleagues, Mrs. Beckerly and Dr. Pierce, to ensure that the three of us are available, and then we will be sending out a doodle poll. I know that we talked about last year for some of the members who continue to serve with us about meeting every other month. I may ask if everybody's okay to possibly consider meeting next month as we establish our work, and then maybe we can go to every other month. But obviously I'll ask the full committee to ensure that that's okay. So look for some information coming from Misty Nichols. Again, the minutes for today, the template for the charter, the template for committee work, and then also a doodle poll as quickly as we can get it to ensure that we get our full committee or as much of our committee together. And I know that other areas are starting to open to hybrid meetings. I know people are still not up for that, but there might be some opportunities for do that. I do my best work in front of people, but I am good and comfortable with whatever the committee is comfortable with.
Can we put that on the doodle poll? Is there a way to add that as a question?
Yeah, we can do that.
That will cost you extra if you have a paid membership.
Oh, okay.
Can I just add one additional? When you are working on sending those documents out, one of the things that I would like to request, I'm not sure if Board Liaison Nichols was able to send those letters out, but letters should have went out to all individuals that served on the committee last year to thank them for their service, to acknowledge their appointment to the committee. Those letters, in essence, as they go out now, should thank them for their service for the years past and should ask if they want to stay on board. For those members that do not want to stay on board, we should ensure that they are acknowledged for their service, not just with the letter, but also an acknowledgement from the board in some shape, form, or fashion. So I would like to ask that operationally, that is followed through with and also done.
Thank you, yes. Any other questions, concerns?
I just want to make sure the documents that are going out, that is the minutes from last meeting, the minutes from this meeting, the charter, the template charter template, the presentations, the one from Engage and the one from
Can we
Scott.
just call that the charter? Because I mean, us calling it the charter template is just for board members to know that other committees might adopt it as well. For all intents and purposes with this committee, it's a revision to the proposed charter that was given in the last meeting. There's a current existing charter that was put on the floor and proposed. They'll have to come back. We'll have to come back and take action on that initial proposal to accept the revisions that have been given with this template that's moving forward.
So it'll be a draft
charter.
So the charter
So
draft.
just say, yeah.
Okay. Charter
a
draft.
revised charter.
And activities, I heard.
Yeah, activity template.
And activity.
And the doodle poll. But I'll probably go separate because that's a lot of stuff on one email.
And
The
yes,
doodle poll can go as a link.
Mhm.
and the 2 presentations that
Yes,
you guys gave us, that's important.
Gotcha. And after everyone else has left the meeting, if I could still have an audience with Vice President Reyes, Wortman, and Beckerly and Pierce and Dr. Pierce. And you too, Misty, you're not off the hook.
So,
All right. Well, thank you,
There's a
everyone.
question about the committees. Yes, the committees that you chose last session are still those. So we'll make sure that we share that also.
Well, they're going to be adjusted a little, I
Yeah,
think.
there's going to be some adjustment, but the majority.
Content will be there.
Yeah, yes. So the answer, yes. But there may be more work.
Miss
exactly what
Reyes,
I'm
so
here.
you guys did mention about diversity or equity or something, a committee along those lines, and I don't think that was listed
right.
before. So I just want to.
Yes, ma'am, you're right.
So it was not listed before. If I'm not mistaken, Board Member Beckley brought that up when she was talking about the homeless students. But I think it aligns quite nicely with the work that we need to do moving forward. And that committee would be structured under the overarching work of that subcommittee will be structured under the overarching work of this committee, very different from the outlining activities of the committee.
And I also think, Jimmy, these committees are not etched in stone, because I think as we better understand what our mission is and the work of external communications and engagement, if we're really doing this work intentionally, we're probably going to be
Absolutely
finding like reasons to break off into even like maybe not an official subcommittee, but like an ad hoc group or a working group, or for the diversity inclusion, take public engagement and a group from the Culture and Climate Committee that we're creating,
right,
and say,
and
so I think that part of what we need to understand is we may have some things that are ongoing, and we might have some long-term work, but I think also in order to be really effective, we have to be able to identify in real time how we can be helpful and then be facile enough to dig in quickly. Sorry.
Yeah. And if President Adair was here,
oh, I'm sorry.
If President Adair was here, she will say that equity should be in all of our work. So,
well,
right. And when you think in terms of even the activities like Children's Day, for example, there may be a place for thinking in terms of some of those other committees as they relate to that specific activity.
yes, ma'am.
Absolutely.
Yes. So, yes, good stuff. Thank you.
Oh, okay, so just to clarify, I'm sorry, because I was the one who questioned about the committee. So I'm just clarifying that so for all intents and purposes, let's say subcommittees are not set, and that we are going to look again at what's going on, the charter revisions, blah, 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 all the things that everyone has showed us today, and revisit the subcommittees, developing the subcommittees. So no, our subcommittees aren't standing as we have already chosen them.
They're lukewarm.
But we will not lose the content.
Right. Well, I mean, like, so it was like marketing and communication. So I'm confused. Okay, I'm going to be honest.
So that's
you're
still,
entitled to be confused. We're in the middle of a transition.
Come out. That's still there, Shelby. That is, those are not the 3, like Dr. Pierce said in our section 3. Those are still our, I guess, overarching work. There may be some additions and different activities, but the fundraising, the marketing, the communication, the public, that's still. So that's why I say it's kind of a yes, and those parts are already yes.
And I think maybe the best way to say it is that will still be there, but the role might be changing in that we're now functioning in an advisory capacity. And so we're going to be less of a doer committee and more of a, how can we facilitate the work of our doers who are here? Does that make sense?
Well,
And I
not
think-
actually, because I
Not
think that might be difficult for some of
Yeah.
our members. I think we're going to have a conversation about
Yeah.
it.
We absolutely have to have a conversation about it because I think that, and I think to be honest,
Ms.
the
Becker,
history of this,
I'm so sorry,
we
ladies.
should end. Okay, well, we'll
Yes.
take that up next time.
5:06, and I want to make sure that we're respectful for the committee members. Shelby, we will get back to you on that, but yes, the
Thank you.
overarching is there. We will, yes, there's work, there's activity and there's work. We'll define what it looks like and how we tackle it. So could I have a motion to adjourn?
A motion to adjourn?
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
everybody.
you.
Till next meeting.
All right.
Thanks, Shelby.